welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I will be your host today, and I'm really excited to have the author Kelsey Cox here to talk about her book, Party of Liars, which is a lot of things. It is a multiple point of view, locked room, whodunit. It's also who was it, rather like who was the victim. You've got a little bit of a nod to Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca in here, and it's a bit of a ghost story as well. And domestic thriller. So a lot of things wrapped up in a nice little party bag. Welcome, Kelsey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Party of Liars is about in your own words and how the story came to be?
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited to be on here. Party of Liars is a lavish Sweet 16 thrown in the Texas Hill Country that turns deadly. It's told from the perspective of 4 different women in different stages of life. So you have everywhere from a teenage girl, kind of an angsty teenage girl, a brand new mother, and the kind of middle-aged bitter ex-wife, and the old Irish nanny, and how these women's lives and secrets intertwine up to the death.
Yeah, it was really interesting and really definitely a page turner. One of the things I think that struck me is, like you mentioned, like everybody's at a different stage. Michaela is the best friend of the party girl. She's having a little bit of emotional issues, both with her friend and also with somebody who's a love interest who is unrequited. And I was kind of wondering who that was throughout the story. So it was very good. A lot of really cool misdirects there. You also have Kim, who's the crazy ex-wife, Sophie's mom, the birthday girl's mom. But, even though there's a lot of stories about her, when you start to kind of hear her background, you wonder if she's really as crazy as she's being made out to be. And then you have Charlotte, who's the baby. Charlotte is not a POV character. How do you pronounce the Irish the Irish nanny's name?
Orla.
Orla is watching Charlotte while Danny, who is the new young wife, is trying to recover from having this baby. And one of the things I have to say that was really interesting was that you really kind of hit the nail on the head there, where Danny, she's suffering from what seems to be maybe postpartum psychosis. And, it's like she's struggling with her identity of wanting to be a person outside of being a mom, which is really, really hard at that stage. So I wanted to just kind of commend you for that one.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really where this book kind of was born. I had been trying to be a writer and a published author for my entire life. And then I had 2 kids back to back, so that my kids are 14 months apart. And my youngest was born in 2020, so right when the pandemic started. And it was just overwhelming. And I really did feel this sense of being erased. I love being a mother and I loved early motherhood, but I feel like myself was no longer important or erased. And it got me to thinking, and I had actually in this time told my sisters that I was going to quit writing. I just didn't have the mental space for it. It seemed ludicrous because I had no free time to write in. And then this idea just hit me that I could use this feeling to fuel a novel, because it's got me thinking about all the different ways that women can be dismissed or erased. So even Michaela, who is this teenage character, the idea that these big feelings that teenage girls have are just over dramatic, they're not important, they're not real. Or Orla is kind of this batty old woman that no one wants to talk to. And the way that you can be erased on that end as well. And then Kim, the crazy ex-wife. I was really interested in exploring that.
And you do a really, really good job of it. And it's always fun to sort of read these stories that take place in the same time period, but they're during other, they're from other people's perspectives. So you kind of see a thing that happened, but then what somebody else thought of it. But then there's also a ghost story sort of in it.
Yeah, there is. There's a story of the mother, which is kind of this local legend in a fictional local legend within the book, that there was this mother in the 1800s who lost her baby and then threw herself over the balcony, in grief. But now she still kind of roams the town looking for children. And she was kind of inspired. There is a local legend here in my area of the San Antonio area. There's a creek called Woman Hollering Creek, and there's kind of that type of legend, which is reminiscent of like La Llorona. It was interesting to me that there's this similar legend throughout different cultures. And she actually just kind of like appeared on the page. I didn't plan her, and then she just demanded to be a bigger part of the book. And I just think for me, she represented like everything that motherhood can be, which can be terrifying, or can be strong. So,
Yeah, and also a bit of loss of agency too,
mm, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah, no. And then, the thing that connects almost everybody is the husband, Ethan.
yeah,
Yeah, and like you get different views of him from both Kim and
Danny.
yeah, Danny. And that's a very interesting dynamic too. Yeah, and also Orla.
Yeah,
Because she's watching what's happening. She is coming at everything from a very different perspective. She's religious, like she'll be very upfront about that. And, sometimes the people are like, okay, thanks, Orla.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, she was actually a really interesting character, I have to say, because I couldn't figure Orla out throughout most of the book. Like, I'm like, what is her deal? Did you have one character that was more fun to write than others?
I actually had a lot of fun with all these characters. I think the reason why I enjoyed writing this book so much is because the characters' voices came so easily to me. And once I can get their voice, you just kind of gotta let them talk on the page. And I think also the tight time frame, it's like, okay, well, where's Kim at the party right now? And then just kind of go from there. But I think Kim was a lot of fun to write, because she's kind of so bitter and just kind of says, at least in her mind, what, you know, she says the quiet parts loud. And so that was fun to write. But Orla was also really fun because she's just kind of this crazy character. And she's also kind of born of my love of Gothic literature. There's always like that creepy side character who's lurking around. So yeah.
Which is interesting because you do reference, like I mentioned, Rebecca, and in Rebecca it's Mrs. Danners or
Yeah,
Danny.
yeah, yeah.
Danny's the young, beautiful wife in this one, so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, she's definitely a Mrs. Danners, Orla, a little bit like based on those types of characters. Um, and that was a lot of fun. And Michaela was a lot of fun too because you
Yeah.
get to be kind of like so much hyperbole when you write a teenager. Like they're uninhibited with these emotions, and that's really fun. Danny was the easiest because I was like a recently postpartum. I was in that when I started it, but Danny, I would probably say all the other three women have a little bit more fun to them in the writing.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Did you know all the twists and turns? Like, did you know who the victim was when you started writing the book?
Yes, I did. A lot of times when I write, because this is my debut, but it's not the first book I've ever written. It's just my first book that I've published. I tend to that's what comes to me first. Like, here's the twist. And for this book, that is definitely true. I was actually like on my hands and knees cleaning up peas that had dropped from my kids, and I thought of this. A sweet 16, and this person is going to die for this reason, and this is how all these four women are connected. And so I knew what everyone's secret was, which made it easy to kind of plant all the red herrings and misdirect and have fun with that. But I didn't know what would happen in between. I didn't know what would actually happen at the party or how we would get there. So.
What are some of the books that you've enjoyed that kind of led up to writing this one? Like, did you have like, like, is this your genre of choice, or are you like completely opposite? Are you like a contemporary rom-com reader, but this is what you like to write?
It's funny because I have read, like, I was one of those kids that would like have a book on the playground, I've always been a reader, and I read a lot of different stuff when I was young. I read a lot of like Goosebumps, and then a lot of fantasy is what I liked when I was younger. Some romance once I got to be a teenager, and then I went to college, and I started having, you're like assigned a lot of literary stuff. And so I think that really elevated my taste. But then when I got out of grad school and I started trying to really write and submit to agents, I realized that the I needed the confines of a genre, because it's what I love as a reader. And I went back to, I had read mysteries with my mom. And in particular, my mom was a really big fan of Anne Perry, who writes like Victorian mysteries. And I loved those. I remember there was the first Anne Perry I ever read was the first like novel that I read in a day. And I was like, I had never read something that was all surrounded around the feeling of a twist, and I was hooked. And then so I started exploring the mystery genre again, and it happened to be like the year Gone Girl came out, and so I was really lucky that I kind of refound the genre during that big wonderful boom. And so Gillian Flynn was like huge. I loved all three of her books. And then I found Tana French, who is probably my favorite author. She's an Irish author that writes the Dublin Murder Squads. I found Louise Penny, who writes, they're like slightly more cozy, the Gamache series. And then I just started reading everything in the genre. So there's like a ton that I admire and love and could talk about forever.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. This is a really, really fun book. I think people are going to love it. And do you have another book in you that
I
you're
do
waiting for?
have,
Yeah, what are you working on?
I have submitted the first draft, and now I've got my feedback from my editor and I'm working on revisions. But yes, hopefully my second book will be coming out next year. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything about it, but I think I can say it's a very similar type book. It's not a sequel or anything, but it is another thriller set in the Texas Hill Country told from multiple POVs. So.
Thank you so much. This was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was,
Kelsey Cox, author.
and we, yes, Party of Liars. And we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.